Hello, welcome to my channel, or welcome back. I hope you're all doing well today. I have a message for someone who is about to be seen and understood in a completely different way than they have ever been seen before. And the sense that I'm getting is you're being seen in your totality and you're being appreciated for who you are. And I'm really getting the sense of people understand you, where I'm seeing someone kind of having a sigh of relief of oh my god, finally someone gets it. And that's the sense that I'm getting for you coming up. And I think this also relates to some sort of past trial that you went through where you weren't sure whether you passed the trial or failed the trial, because the sense I'm getting is you did pass the trial and you did everything right, but there was almost a sense of being confused because you might have thought that this trial would result in this end result of being seen and being understood, but then it didn't quite go that way. And then maybe there was this period of time where you had to really spend a lot of time in your own energy, getting back in touch with yourself, and maybe not interacting so much with the public eye or with other people. But the sense that I'm getting is you are now about to reap the rewards for passing this previous trial, where it was almost like this delayed time period of seeing the result from that, and that you are about to be seen and recognized in a completely different way. So I think that this is messages for someone who maybe went through some sort of period of downtime, or maybe hiding away, maybe being in hermit mode a little bit for a while, but they are still ready to be seen. The sense I'm getting is you've begged the universe, or you've begged God or your higher self for this opportunity, and it was you had really been saying okay, I'm ready, I'm really ready, and the universe had maybe been kind of teasing you, and that's where that previous trial might have come in, where it was oh, are you really ready? And it's giving you kind of a hint or a sneak peek, and you're no, I'm really, really ready. And I think finally now it's you are being presented with this opportunity that you had prayed for and begged for. But it's almost there's kind of this double feeling of the energy of relief, where it's okay, finally I'm getting what I asked for. But then there's also this feeling of almost excitement or nervousness. I don't want to say fear, but it's almost a sense of it's something you've been asking for so long that when it finally arrives, it's almost more than you had expected, or it's just different than you had expected. And it's kind of when you really anticipate something, a project, if you were applying for a job that you really wanted, and then you finally get the job and you realize it's a lot more work or a lot more responsibility than you expected. That's kind of the sense I'm getting, is it's rewarding to be seen in this way, but it's also just far more significant than you ever could have expected when you hadn't been granted this previously. All right, so let's pull some cards and get more into this energy. Okay, so we have the Seven of Swords in reverse. So the sense that I'm getting from this is it's this feeling of having walked away from a battle, and particularly in relation to maybe some sort of ego battle that was going on in some ways, where this had prevented you from being fully seen, because it was almost you had been tailoring yourself to other people's expectations of you. And even if you were someone who had kind of always been walking your own path and doing your own thing, it was almost as if you had maybe gotten a little bit confused between being a person of your word and then also conforming to other people's judgments of you. Because maybe there were times where someone had judged you to be something, and then you felt the need to fulfill that in order to be a person of your word, because you felt this was the image that you were trying to maintain. Maybe if people had classed you as a certain type of artist or a certain type of person or working in a certain genre, and there was this almost consensus around you, is what I'm getting. You felt you had to align with that in order to continue being consistent, maybe. But this was almost actually a compromise, because it was you were taking too much from the environment rather than working from your core. So that's the sense I'm getting, is you're kind of walking away from that having any sort of meaning or particular way of being seen ascribed to you by other people. And I think that part of this is also you are walking away from some of those ego battles where you could be judging other people as well, where it's maybe this feeling of competition could have been interfering with your ability to be truly seen, where if you had maybe looked at your ambitions, whether this is in your career or even in romance or just in general, of trying to be the best, or the most valuable asset, the most desirable opportunity, or just the highest caliber of work, these types of things might have almost been polluting you, because this was like creating this kind of ego battle in your head about comparison and being better than other people, and this had been holding you back because you were still stuck in that really ego-based mentality. And I feel like releasing a lot of that has allowed you to actually become all those things, like the most desirable prospect or really a high caliber artist, because you no longer actually care about that. It's like you have this understanding that everyone can be the best in their own way, and becoming the best in one's own way means getting in touch with that core sense of self that is not so influenced by the external world or other people's opinions, but it's about like truly that self-actualization is what allows you to become someone who is like iconic or great. And I feel like the reason that I bring up like career and romance seems really related or relevant to this is the sense I'm getting is like it's kind of happening in tandem, where it's like you have to be ready to be seen on the world stage in a certain way in order for like certain aspects of your career to take off, or a certain mode of working to be available to you. But at the same time, it's like this transformation that took place to allow that is transforming certain possibilities in love as well, where being seen, it's like the microcosm and macrocosm of like you're being seen on the world stage in a certain way, and that is similar or mirroring the way that you're seen by one individual person as well, or like the individual people that you relate to in the case of like friendships or family relationships as well. It's like that one-on-one dynamic of being truly seen for who you are, and then that global dynamic of being seen in the public eye. It's like you will be seen truthfully for who you are in both of those situations at the same time. So we could dive into like a little bit of both. Like maybe we'll pull a little bit on career and then a little bit on love as well. Let's start with one more card on career. Okay, so the feeling is death. Ooh, in the upright position. So it's the sense of like being dethroned, but then a new king is taking the throne, where it's like, again, it's relating to this feeling of like an ego death, where it was almost like, like the sense I'm getting is Marilyn Monroe, where she talks about how there was always this little girl named Norma Jean inside her from the orphanage. Like she didn't really know who that girl was, but there was some bigger ambition for her in some way. And then she became Marilyn Monroe, the icon who everyone knows, of course. So that's kind of the sense I'm getting, is it's like you're killing that version of you that was programmed with all of this material since childhood, by your parents, by your education, by your culture. And that was like kind of like a nobody, almost like this, like it had more of this ego stuff built up about like, okay, maybe you're smart, or maybe you're good at math, or you're very introspective or introverted or shy. That all those kind of adjectives or ego-related qualities could have been built up on that original kind of like starting character. But the sense that I'm getting is you are now reinventing yourself into this true version of yourself that was inside all along, that maybe was even there before a lot of that ego-related stuff came up. So it's almost like you had that true self when you were very, very young, like when you were just like a little child, and then all of that ego stuff started getting programmed into you, you know, kind of in your childhood and teenage years, and then that carries on into adulthood. And then it's like this new king is actually not a completely new king or completely new invention that you're creating, but it's almost like you're returning back to that previous state, and then that is the true self that is finally being seen. So that's why when you were living in that way of like the old king and all of this ego stuff, it was like you had never been truly seen, because that true self wasn't really shining through. It was almost like the ego was predominating, and so that's all that people could see. So there's almost this dissonance where it was like people were only recognizing you on the level of ego, and then that was causing you some frustration, because you knew that there was this true self inside of you that no one had ever seen, and you really wanted to let it out. So that's the sense I'm getting, is like finally this is being let out into the world. And I think it relates to your career in terms of this feeling of self-determination and self-actualization. Like, so in some ways, you're taking that true self that is almost like nameless, formless, just existing, and you're creating a name for it by your own process of creative invention. So whether this is like a stage name or just a stage persona, maybe you're still using the same name, but it's like relating to how you present yourself in the world. It's no longer these prescribed things that were given to you about like, okay, you're shy or you're smart or anything like that, but it's like you're now choosing from, you know, that inner core knowing knowing of who you want to be. Like, this is how I'm going to present myself on the world stage, and like this is my character who I've created, right? And at the same time, it's like it's a truer expression of yourself, because it doesn't necessarily feel fake or put on, right? Even though you're choosing to show certain qualities of yourself to the world, it's not like you are making that up. It's not like you're becoming a different person. It's just like that true expression of yourself is now shining through, and you're choosing how to allow that to shine through. All right, now let's draw a card in relation to romance on this topic. Ooh, okay, so we're getting the Two of Cups in reverse. So there is kind of the sense of your subverting or like reversing your understanding of how romantic relationships might work. And the sense that I'm getting is like, it was kind of like you might have had this feeling of like a relationship could fix you, or it was like that was kind of like the end goal in some ways, of like once you're in a loving relationship, like that is making your life better in some ways. But I feel like you've kind of flipped the script here, where you understand now that it's like when you're living from that place of being fully self-actualized and being in touch with your core self, the relationship comes naturally to you, where it's almost like everything is like creating the space for it to actually grow, or like it's almost like all of the parts work together. Like when you think about like this harmonious feeling of being able to relate to other people, success in your career, money, abundance, and love, it's almost like it's not like you can pick and choose which of those things you're getting of just like one at a time now. It's more like they all come to you at the same time when you reach that highest vibration. So it's like once you get to that vibration in yourself, all of the things automatically come to you. So that's where it was like maybe you had kind of thought like, okay, if I find someone who's really going to support me and see me, then I'll be able to be seen, right? But it's actually kind of the opposite. It's like when you are getting to that point of self-actualization for yourself, that just draws in magnetically this partner who is perfectly aligned to you when it comes to your ambitions and your needs and your ability to exist harmoniously with another person. So it's almost like it's not necessarily like you had to go out and search the world for this partner who was like meeting all your expectations. It was more like once you really aligned with your truest self, it was like, you know, obviously this person already existed and they were living their own life in this very magical way, but the way that you met, it was almost as if once you had reached this point, or once you reach this point, if this is happening more in the future for you, that this person almost spawns into existence, as if it was like a snap of the fingers and suddenly the perfect person for you in romance suddenly exists. And there is this kind of magical feeling of it, because you do understand that through the passage of time, like this person has lived their own life, that they have built up, you know, their own interests and personality traits and all of this, but at the same time it's like they were designed for you to be the perfect partner for you in this moment. And that is where it's kind of like the strange feeling, because it is like this reversal of what you would expected of like being able to put out like a specific list of qualities that you wanted in a partner, and or maybe like finding a partner and then asking them like, okay, can you see me for who I really am? It's more like once you got to this point in this other work you were doing, then it was like the person who is able to see you for who you really are just appears in your life. And then we're getting the Sun at the bottom of the deck here. So there's this feeling of innocence. And like I mentioned, this return to this like very innocent inner child kind of feeling. And with the Sun, it's also like relating to, there's like a sunrise on the Death card here. It's like almost like a new day, like this feeling of being reborn. And then I'm also getting the sense of like some sort of physical feeling like in your solar plexus as well. Like I feel like there's this kind of sense of like calm, or like a release of anxieties. Or like a release of heaviness or lightness, where I feel like a lot of the energy is kind of moving up your body, where maybe it was like this feeling of heaviness that had weighed you down. Like what I'm getting is kind of like this anxious feeling of like discomfort, and then it was like this transformation occurred in you where you felt more grounded, but then almost more lighter in some way, where it was like, I think maybe it was almost as if the energies were kind of reversed in some ways, or it was like the lines were tangled is what I'm getting. Like if you look at like a ball of yarn, or like like a pulley or something like that, where there's some sort of cable that's connecting two things. It's like the cable was twisted, or like a strap was twisted, or like what I'm getting is like a conveyor belt where like the conveyor belt is twisted, so it's like every time that it tries to go around, it's like bumping kind of weirdly. And that's the sense that I'm getting, is like your physical somatic feeling might be happening right now. Is like it's almost like this reversal or like smoothing out, where things are just working as they should, where you don't have any more of those unpleasant sensations, where it just feels like something's just a little bit out of whack. It's like your body is finally starting to work in the way that it was meant to, harmoniously. And I think it really does correspond to a lot of the things that are also going on in your mind and in your spirit right now too, of like being seen for who you are is like this feeling of it's so right, like and this feeling of like letting go of a burden, where I feel like maybe you might have been feeling almost this constant sense of exhaustion because of this never having been truly seen. And it was like you had always wanted to just be seen, to just trust someone, to be trusted, to be loved for who you are, and to be understood. And it was like this had caused this really heavy or tired feeling within you of just like this exhaustion of like wanting to lay down your burden, is what I'm getting. It's like you had been carrying this around like almost like an anvil on your back or something, and you had just been waiting all these times. Or like I mentioned, you might have had previous trials in the past where it felt like, okay, I can finally lay down the burden, but then at the last minute, just as you're about to place it on the ground, suddenly something goes wrong and then you have to carry it another mile. But the sense I'm getting is that with this new feeling of being seen for who you really are, it's like you're actually able to let go of this burden, place it down, and it's like this new lightness is entering your world. And I think it really does relate to a physical sensation as well, where it's like a weight being lifted off of your chest. So that's really the sense that I'm getting for you in the near future, or just the recent past or present, is the sense I'm getting is like you are letting go of this burden entirely. Okay, let's draw a few more cards on what is happening exactly in this process of being seen. All right, and with the Six of Swords, there is this feeling of moving on from rougher waters into calmer waters. And this is also a card of this kind of like liminal space, or this in-between, or this kind of feeling of suspense of like what's going to happen next. It's like you've packed up all of these things that are important to you, and you're ready to cross over into this new way of being, but it's almost like not being sure what to expect. And like I mentioned, you might have been telling yourself or telling the universe that you were ready for this new way of being seen in this very truthful way, but it was almost like, were you really ready? Because it's like this is like completely new uncharted territory, right, is what I'm getting. So it's like you're crossing over into this uncharted territory, and there's a sense of excitement but also trepidation for just like almost like waiting for what's going to happen, like all these new experiences you're going to see. And then also with this card, you can see that there's a man rowing, and then he has his perhaps a wife and a child, or a woman and child with him, right? And this kind of relates to this feeling of not just like, it could relate to a sort of chosen family, or like a romantic partner, or people that you're taking with you on your journey. But when it comes to your internal process of what's going on here, is that the masculine active principle within you has been pushing you to do certain actions. Like, for example, like posting a video of yourself on the internet, or sharing your work with people, or going up onto some sort of open mic and doing a performance, right? That's the active principle is guiding the rest of you. And then inside you also have this inner child energy, like I mentioned with like the Sun card, or like just getting back to this really innocent version of yourself. So then you have this inner child within you as well. And then you also have the feminine principle, who is like almost like in touch with this process, in that it's guiding you maybe almost like more subliminally. So it's like when you get like a really strong intuition to do these things, where it could also like be informing the content of what you're sharing with the world, and it's kind of like this infinite possibility of what you could do, where it's like the masculine aspect is the choice to do something, and then the feminine aspect is like all of the things that you could share with the world. And then the inner child is like this playfulness that brings it out in this kind of lighthearted and instant way, where instead of having any sort of inner critic kind of silencing you or judging your work before you share it with the world, it's like the inner child brings this to light. So the sense I'm getting is you're taking all of those aspects of you, like these kind of three core energies. And of course you have like an infinite world inside of you with like many rich personas and archetypes and characters that are all existing within you. But like this kind of triad of the masculine, feminine, and the this inner child could be very important to you right now, or could really be strong energies that you're working with at this point in your journey, maybe when it comes to some sort of inner work or journaling that you're doing. And I feel like this is really what's enabling you to cross out of these stormy waters into calmer waters. I think is like, it's almost like you're labeling these aspects of yourself, where in the past it was almost like this chaotic, undifferentiated way of being, where things were kind of freaking you out, or like there was just too much going on, right? And then once you kind of started like separating, what I'm getting is like a braided strand of hair, is like you separated out the 3 strands, and then you were able to understand what parts of your psyche were more in this masculine energy, what parts were more in the feminine energy, and like being able to recognize and empower your inner child and protect it. It was like this created the calm waters for you, where you could feel much more secure in being able to share things with the world. And like, again, this is also relating to this feeling of like a kind of ego death, or this kind of rebirth or renewal, where it was like previously you might have almost felt like a little bit too much investment into your ego or your persona of like, okay, this is the person who I am. And then it's like putting this pressure on you of like, okay, the person who I am is being lazy, or the person who I am is being ambitious today, or getting a lot of work done. But I think that this new way of seeing yourself, of this like inner sort of system that's working together, where it's almost like you have that kind of like pure energy that is then able to embody any sort of character that it needs to in the moment. And it's like many different parts working together in order to kind of keep the show running. Like the sense I'm getting is like a stage crew for like a film is like, or like for a theater performance is like you have dozens of people kind of running around. You have the actors, and you have the director and the orchestra and everything. And it's like you're recognizing that part of yourself, and that is helping you to be seen for like that true core gem of yourself that you know is like different or individual in some way, but you're also understanding that you have all of this working together. And it's almost like this feeling of internal division or conflict, right? Like walking away from the battle is being healed within you as well, where previously, like I mentioned, like there could have been this feeling of like antagonizing yourself, of like if you had maybe had a day where you were like in bed rather than working, you might have criticized yourself with like, okay, I'm being lazy, I have low energy, or that sort of thing. But it could have been like, now your way of approaching that is like saying like, okay, it's clear that this feminine principle within me needs some time to do its work, and that means the physical rest of the body. And then there's like all of this creative activity that's still happening in your mind, and it's like this letting the unconscious kind of take over, right? And so then you don't see it as this feeling of like antagonizing yourself or fighting with yourself about like, why am I behaving like this instead of the way that I should? It's like you understand that it's like a different part of yourself is manning the controls now, and that there is no need to criticize any aspect of your behavior or any aspect of like what you're going through right now, where it could have had this feeling of like being really hard on yourself. But I think this new way of looking at yourself and looking at the psyche or the world itself is like understanding that it's like all these parts working together, and there doesn't need to be any sort of division or conflict within that. All right. Hopefully this is making sense. Right, we have the Fool. So the sense I'm getting is you were taking a really big leap of faith in this act of being seen. It's like it does genuinely feel like jumping off of a cliff. And this is like where it could relate to both your career and your prospects in romance, where it's the ability to take a leap of faith is what grants you all of these blessings. Where like if you're playing it small and you refuse to surrender to the forces that are at play that are writing your life, then it's like you get a very boring life where you're not taking the leap of faith, and it's almost like you're getting kind of a rote story. Like what I'm getting is like Hallmark movie or like a pulp book, where, you know, it can be good, it can be enjoyable, of course, but it's almost like the script or the storyline is really limited in some way, where nothing kind of new is happening. But what I'm getting is like this leap of faith allows for a masterwork, where it's like like a magnum opus. And the sense I'm getting is like one of those books that really stands alone, where it's like the classics, right? Where like there's some books where it's like they're churned out to be sold at the counter at the pharmacy, or like whatever the equivalent could have been like 100 years ago, right? And then there's some books where it's like it's winning some sort of award or it's influencing culture and it becomes a book that is taught in school. And that's kind of the sense I'm getting of like the life paths that are diverging for you, is that you are now on this timeline or this life path of the masterwork because you have chosen to take this leap of faith. And this will relate to your career where it comes to like I mentioned, like defining yourself in some way, like taking the leap of faith to say, I am an artist and I'm doing this. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be tied down to any particular pathway. Because like I mentioned, like, of course, you can always change things and not allow any sort of particular role to be ascribed to you by the external world. But it's like sometimes you do have to kind of make that choice and make that leap of faith in order to become great, right? Like if you just kind of say like, I'm just doing whatever, I'm not really doing anything in particular, that's kind of playing it safe. But if you choose to say like, I want to be a wonderful writer, I want to be a painter, I want to be a dancer, and then you go out and do that, like that's the leap of faith. And you can still change and come back from that and completely go in a different direction. But it is that first leap of faith of like defining yourself as something that is going to grant you some sort of exciting opportunity. Like what I'm getting is like also the class in a video game, right? Of like you start as kind of the starter class where you can like fight using your fists, but then you can choose like a different class where it's like you could become like a ranger, and then you learn all these abilities where you can use the bow and arrow, or you become like a wizard and then you have all these abilities with like a wand and you're casting magic spells. So that's the sense I'm getting, is like there's some chaotic noise happening outside. It's like you're choosing a certain class for yourself, and this is unlocking new possibilities that you never could have imagined before. But it is just like that, taking that first step, that leap of faith into this uncharted territory that will unlock all this new possibility in you. And similarly, with this leap of faith you might be taking in love that's allowing you to be seen for who you really are, it's like, again, like there's this feeling of like playing it safe where you might have felt maybe this feeling of like considering options, or like playing it safe, like taking it slow, or like really like assessing, criticizing again, like any sort of romantic opportunity. But it's like when you take this leap of faith to allow yourself to fall in love, and especially if you did have some sort of heartbreak in the past, like, and you maybe thought you never could fall in love again, it's like that leap of faith to say like you will fall in love again and it is possible for you. That is what grants you this new type of relationship that you've never had before, where it's like you overcome all the odds, is what I'm getting. It's like it was like almost like the story was kind of set up for a tragic ending, but then you kind of did a plot twist. The sense I'm getting is like, and then that has given you some sort of new possibility where it's like, instead of just becoming another pulp book, like a kind of boring storyline where you just settle or kind of give up, instead you took that leap of faith to fall in love, and that is allowing you to be seen in this way that you wouldn't have been able to if you kind of went with like the boring route of settling or considering options. It's like you devoted yourself to some sort of passion, and like again, like it's really working in tandem here of like your passions in romance and your passions in your career or just in your creative work are very much entwined, where like when you allow yourself to realize your passions fully, just with one person or in a romantic setting, and allow yourself to realize your passions fully in this public eye and in your creative work, it's like it empowers both sides of yourself, and it's like a process that happens at the same time. It's not necessarily like you need to be focused on one or the other, right? It's just allowing yourself to become more authentically yourself, more true to yourself, is leading to more success in both of these aspects of your life. All right, now let's draw one more card to close out this reading on being seen for who you really are. Okay, the Chariot. So there is a sense of moving forward, but also staying humble, where you need to understand that this is not whatsoever the end of your journey, where it almost feels like I mentioned, of like laying down this burden, or like there could have also been in your spiritual life some sort of feelings of like reaching enlightenment, or having some sort of like peek behind the veil, like seeing behind the veil. But the sense that I'm getting is like this has empowered you and raised you up and allowed you to move forward in a new way that you had never done before, and like I mentioned, like having been seen in a completely authentic and true way like you've never been seen before. But it's almost like you need to humble yourself and understand that this is the beginning of a cycle and the beginning of a journey as well, where if you see this as the end point and then you say, okay, like okay, I'm done. I've got all there is out of life. I've achieved it all. That's when you get taken down a notch. And then this process of death has to come back again. And it's like the old king has to fall to make room for the new king again. So it's like keeping this kind of fresh, balanced perspective to what's going on right now. And understanding that this shock of being thrust into some sort of new environment, of like crossing over to a new shore, or having been seen or like not seen for who you really are and then being seen again, is like this continual process that almost keeps taking place, where it's almost like when you get to like stagnant in it, or you allow yourself to let down your guard, or almost like the kind of contrasting energies that I'm getting are like surrender and giving up, where surrender is like, it's like a life force, but like allowing yourself to be carried by the river of life into some sort of new, like you're being carried down the stream, right? But giving up is almost like laying face down in the river and letting yourself drown. And it's like when you let yourself drown, then that's when this process needs to take place again, where you're being given trials and this death feeling and being pushed into taking even greater leaps of faith. But then it's like when you allow yourself to kind of float through life and just dance through life, then it's almost like the leap doesn't necessarily have to be a fall anymore. The leap can be a dance, and you're like leaping kind of like bounding, or what I'm getting is like boundless. It's like you can almost learn to fly rather than having to walk. So the sense that I'm getting is like harnessing this energy very well, like making the best of it, where you shouldn't let it inflate you in any sense. Like I'm getting a sense of like an inflated ego, where like being seen for who you really are, right? And it's like this thing you've wanted for so long, that having your desire realized can almost corrupt you in some way. Like I'm getting the story of like Hu Yi, who like shot down the suns, and then they made him a king for having done this magnificent task that helped out the whole kingdom, right? But then he became like a really evil ruler, and then he tried to make the elixir of life so that he could live forever and be this evil ruler forever. And then his wife Chang'er had drank the elixir of life, and then she went up and she had to live on the moon. So it was like this sense of like, and then their love was separated, right? So it's like when you allow yourself to get into that ego death of like, I want to live forever, I want to be the king forever, then the king has to die, and then you're being separated from this feminine aspect within yourself. So it really is just about keeping this balance of, the light and shadow at all times, and not letting it get to your head, even when you feel like you've achieved some great victory and you have been seen for who you really are, right? It's to stay humble in this process and keep working. All right, well, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this made a little bit of sense to you. As always, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And if you're interested in booking a custom reading, please shoot me an email. We can arrange that. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.